policies. Remember, we had control of the border this past year. It has been Joe Biden reversing the policies that got control back that have created this human tragedy. And the tragedy starts with these desperate people, particularly in the Northern Triangle countries. The amount that the coyotes charge for these people is about a year's wages. A lot of them don't have it. So they come here literally as indentured servants. In a country that outlawed slavery 150 years ago, we are bringing in a new class of slaves to the cartels. In fact, one Border Patrol officer told me of encountering a mother with a 5-year-old boy from one of the Northern Triangle countries. And she says, why would you bring your son on such a dangerous journey? And she says, well, to escape the gangs and to get him a better education and a better life. And the Border Patrol officer said, you understand that the gangs you think you're escaping, they're already here. And your child is going to be placed in a school where he doesn't speak the language. He's not going to learn anything. He doesn't share the culture. He's going to be isolated. And the one place he's going to turn for protection and acceptance are the very gangs you say you're trying to escape. But with the promise of open borders, a lot of people are taking them up on it. And there's a reason, because it works. The borders are open. They know that when their family members and friends cross the border, they're given a lot of free stuff. They're given free transportation anywhere they want to go in the United States. They call home and said, we're here. We've got lots of free stuff. We got a free plane ticket to Baltimore. And now's the time to come. So that's what's going on. But there's another aspect of this. I was in Calexico last week. They're seeing, and in fact, we saw a family from Romania taken into custody who had illegally crossed the border through one of the gaps in the wall that was left when Biden abandoned the wall. They're from Romania. We saw another group taken into custody from 3 countries, Armenia, Russia, and Cuba. They say they're getting an awful lot of Cubans, but also a lot of folks from Europe. What's going on there? These are people with means. They're getting tourist visas to fly to Cancun, from there to Mexicali. There, they illegally cross the border. So this is not just a Latin America issue. The borders are open to people from all over the world now. We literally have no borders. And history is screaming this warning at us that the countries that either cannot or will not defend their borders simply aren't around very long. And if Gallup is right, and this is the beginning of a mass migration of 42 million people, I don't know of any civilization that has ever survived such a phenomenon.
Let's go to Luis in North Carolina, Democratic caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to ask the congressman, make a point. When the former president was in office, people were not allowed, the senators or the House was not allowed to even look at the border to see what was going on inside their places where they were keeping the children. And also, with when the president former president lied about losing winning the election, he didn't look at nothing about solar winds or where they took over the hospitals and stuff, where they hacked into that. But everything was only about that, and he knew about it. And as far as getting rid of Liz Cheney, at least she's speaking the truth. Kevin McCarthy and what's his name, McConnell, they stood up there the day of the insurrection and told the real truth, and then went to Trump and told a lie.
Okay, Luis. Congressman?
Well, obviously, I have a completely different view of the candidness with which both administrations have dealt with this. The Trump administration did allow photographs. That's how all those photographs came out. The Biden administration, when we visited these facilities, we were specifically told if we dared to take any pictures of conditions on the inside, that the tour would be terminated and we'd be thrown out. They've kept the press away from these holding facilities. When I was there in the Rio Grande Valley about a month ago, we saw one cattle pen, that's the only way you can describe them, designed for 33 people. There were over 500 people packed in there. They had not been tested for COVID. If you can imagine a more efficient incubator for every kind of virus, there it was. So no, quite the contrary. The Trump administration was at least very transparent about what was going on. This administration has done everything it could to cover up. And again, I have a very different view of President Trump's role on the events of January 6th. If you look at what he actually said, he said, I expect you will peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. That's not incitement. There is a lunatic fringe in every movement, but President Trump said nothing that could begin to be construed as incitement. I mean, if you want to look at incitement, it's telling rioters that they need to become more confrontational, as Maxine Waters did a few weeks ago. What President Trump did, I think, was ill-advised. I think that it was bombastic, but it certainly was not incitement to riot.
Ken, in Arizona, Republican.
Yes, I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer, and I worked on the border back in the 90s. Little had changed on the border up until Trump became president, and that was probably the first time that we actually saw something that worked. Not that that's the answer, because I think Congress needs to we need changes in our immigration laws, and Congress needs to make those changes. What we have doesn't really work. We're just holding the flood back. One thing that really disturbs me is watching this stuff on the TV. You can go to Fox, and they got videos of all these people streaming across, of the kids that were abandoned on the bank of the river, you know, babies basically. At the same time, I'll turn the channel to all the liberal news media channels, CNN, MSNBC, and there will be nothing about the border on there.
All right, Ken. Congressman.
Well, I think people are going to start seeing that in their own communities very soon, whether or not CNN is covering it or not. One of the Border Patrol officers, perhaps the most chilling thing I heard, was when he said, you know, remember, our border is your border. Every community in America is about to become a border community, because when you look at these numbers, every single month, the encounters, the size of fairly large cities in the United States coming in every single month, it's not going to be long before we start seeing our classrooms overwhelmed by non-English speaking students. We're going to see our local emergency rooms packed with illegals demanding basic care. We're going to see this in the crime rate as the gangs proliferate throughout this country. And most of all, working families are going to see it in depressed wages as the labor market is flooded with millions of low-wage illegal laborers. So this is coming to all of our communities. If you're not seeing it yet, you're going to be seeing it very soon. These numbers are escalating. As I said, there are, according to Gallup, there are 42 million people behind them waiting to come.